Imagine a moment when everything you once relied on begins to crumble, when the foundations of your world shake violently, not just outside, but deep inside your mind. It's in these moments that survival feels less like a possibility and more like a fading memory, swallowed by a tide of dread and despair. Why does tough times feel like the end of the world? This overwhelming sense of collapse is not just circumstance, it's wired into us. The brain's ancient survival system, the fight-or-flight response, fires into action at the slightest hint of danger. Adrenaline surges, senses sharpen, and a flood of panic spreads, designed to save us from immediate physical threats. But what happens when the threat isn't a lion or a falling tree, but economic uncertainty, social upheaval, or invisible viruses? Our primal brain treats these modern crises with the same urgent intensity, magnifying fear and shutting down rational thought. Yet the real danger is not the outside world, but how our minds interpret it. The human brain has an uncanny ability to distort reality, to make problems loom larger, to convince us that survival is slipping away, even when it might still be within reach. This mental distortion fuels a cycle of hopelessness and paralysis. History offers countless stories of individuals and communities who stood at the brink, surrounded by ruin and loss, but did not succumb. They survived not because the crisis was less severe, but because they cultivated a mental stance, acting as if they were meant to endure. Their minds refused to accept defeat, turning survival into a conscious, deliberate act. Survival, then, is not only about physical endurance. It is a psychological journey, an inner battle fought long before the external fight. To survive the toughest of times, we must first learn to survive within ourselves, by shaping our mindset, embracing uncertainty, and acting as if the very act of surviving is our destiny. Throughout history, the world has witnessed societies unravel under the weight of disaster. Empires have crumbled, economies have collapsed, and cultures have been pushed to the brink of extinction. Yet time and again, fragments of these shattered civilizations have endured, adapted, and sometimes even flourished amid the ruins. What separates those who survive from those who vanish into the dust of history? Take the fall of Rome, for example, a civilization that dominated continents and set the foundation for modern Western society. As its political structures decayed and barbarian invasions tore through its borders, it would have been easy to assume this was the definitive end. Yet even in those darkest hours, the remnants of Rome's culture, knowledge, and resilience persisted. In monasteries, in the oral traditions of displaced peoples, and in the slow rebirth of cities centuries later, survival was a process of transformation, not surrender. Similarly, the aftermath of World War II exposed entire nations to devastation unimaginable before. Cities lay in rubble, economies were shattered, and millions faced displacement. But from this devastation arose new world orders and economic miracles. Countries like Germany and Japan did not just rebuild their infrastructures, they rebuilt their identities. Their survival hinged on collective determination, innovation, and a shared belief that they were meant to rise from the ashes. Even more striking are the stories of indigenous peoples who faced the relentless forces of colonization, cultural erasure, and systemic oppression. Their survival was not just physical, but spiritual and cultural. Despite centuries of attempts to erase their existence, many indigenous communities have preserved their languages, rituals, and worldviews, passing them down as a testament to an unbroken will to live. What mindset underpinned these stories of endurance? It was not blind optimism, nor was it fate or luck. It was a gritty, conscious choice, a collective decision to act as if survival was not only possible, but inevitable. This mindset nurtured resilience at every level, individual, communal, and cultural. It accepted uncertainty and fear, as companions rather than enemies. It embraced change and adaptation as tools of survival, rather than threats to identity. Survival became a skill honed by practice, shaped by culture, and reinforced through shared narrative. These societies embodied the paradox of survival. not a passive waiting for rescue, but an active, often painful process of enduring and transforming hardship into strength. As we reflect on these historical shadows, it becomes clear, surviving tough times is not merely an accident of circumstance. It is a deliberate act, a mastery of mindset that transcends time and place. These lessons from history invite us to reconsider our own response to crisis, not as victims waiting for the storm to pass, but as agents shaping the future by the very way we choose to endure today. What if survival isn't something that simply happens to us, but something we actively create within ourselves? The idea of acting as if suggests that our mindset can be the difference between succumbing to hardship and rising through it. But this is more than just a cliché or simple motivation. It is a complex psychological mechanism rooted in how our beliefs, identity, and actions intertwine. Consider the concept of cognitive reframing, a technique that shifts how we interpret challenges. When danger or despair looms, the stories we tell ourselves can either imprison us or set us free. By consciously choosing to view struggle as an opportunity rather than an endpoint, we engage a powerful mental shift that alters our emotional and physical responses. This is not denial of reality, but an act of mental mastery, a refusal to be crushed by circumstance. Closely related is the placebo effect, a phenomenon demonstrating the mind's ability to influence the body's reality, simply through belief. When we act as if healing, strength, or survival are inevitable, we trigger real physiological changes. Our brain releases chemicals that reduce stress and bolster immunity. In effect, survival becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Philosophers have long wrestled with the relationship between suffering and strength. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, urged us to accept hardship as an essential part of life's fabric. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. For Aurelius, resilience was born not from avoiding pain but from embracing it, transforming obstacles into fuel for growth. Nietzsche, too, championed the idea of struggle as the crucible for becoming stronger. His notion of amor fati, the love of fate, calls for an embrace of life's chaos and suffering as necessary for creating meaning and power. To act as if one is meant to survive is to willfully shape one's identity through adversity, refusing to be a passive victim. Modern psychology echoes these ancient insights. Studies reveal that people who cultivate a growth mindset, believing that abilities and outcomes can change through effort, are more resilient in the face of trauma. Intentional action, even small steps, rewires the brain, builds new neural pathways, and fosters a sense of agency. But this mental resilience is not developed in isolation. Today's world bombards us with messages of helplessness and fear. Media and power structures often amplify anxiety and doubt, subtly conditioning us to accept passivity. The constant barrage of sensational news, divisive rhetoric, and manufactured crises can erode our belief in survival, making the psychological battle even harder. Recognizing these forces is crucial. To reclaim agency, we must become aware of the manipulation embedded in our environment and resist it by consciously choosing our internal narratives. Acting as if we are meant to survive becomes an act of rebellion against despair, a deliberate choice to shape our own reality despite external chaos. This psychological mastery, the fusion of belief, identity, and purposeful action, creates the foundation for true resilience. It transforms survival from a passive outcome into an active practice. It empowers us not only to endure but to thrive, even in the most daunting times. In this light, acting as if is more than a mindset. It is a way of being. It challenges us to rewrite the story we tell ourselves, to harness the power of our own minds, and to face the uncertainty of life with strength and clarity. We live in a time unlike any other, a world overwhelmed by chaos that stretches far beyond natural disasters or political upheaval. The crises we face today are layered and complex. Pandemics that halt entire societies, political unrest that fractures nations, economic instability that threatens livelihoods, and an ever-accelerating digital storm of information warfare. This is the age of uncertainty, where survival feels less about physical danger and more about navigating a labyrinth of mental and emotional turmoil. The relentless flood of media, news cycles, and social feeds serves as a double-edged sword. On one hand, it connects us and informs us. On the other, it feeds anxiety, fear, and confusion. Propaganda and misinformation swirl together in a haze, designed to disorient, divide, and control. Every headline screams crisis. Every notification demands attention. Every narrative seems engineered to keep us unsettled. It's a psychological battleground where clarity is the ultimate casualty. In this environment, survival becomes a paradox. How do you preserve your sanity and agency when the very systems that should support you seem designed to overwhelm you? The external chaos is real, but the internal response, our mental survival, is the true front line. This is where the philosophy of acting as if becomes not just relevant, but essential. To act as if you are meant to survive amid uncertainty is to build an inner fortress, one that protects your mind from the corrosive effects of fear and manipulation. It is to cultivate clarity amid the noise, purpose amid confusion. Recent history offers a stark view of this struggle. The global pandemic unleashed waves of fear and isolation, forcing millions into solitude and uncertainty. Governments and media cycles battled over control of narratives, shaping public perception in ways that often deepened anxiety rather than alleviating it. Economic crashes and political polarization added fuel to the fire, creating a perfect storm of collective stress. Yet, even in this maelstrom, individuals and communities found ways to adapt. People developed new routines, found solace in virtual connections, and redefined what resilience means in the modern era. Those who acted as if survival was their mission did not simply endure the upheaval. They found meaning and strength through it. But this resilience requires critical awareness. It demands questioning the stories fed by authorities, media, and social platforms. It means recognizing the subtle forces that seek to shape our beliefs and emotions, often without our conscious consent. Critical thinking becomes a survival skill, a mental shield that allows us to separate truth from manipulation. The lessons from history and psychology echo louder than ever. The mindset that transformed past civilizations through collapse is the same one that must guide us now. A refusal to be passive, an embrace of uncertainty, and a commitment to acting with intention. Survival is not a given. It is a skill forged through awareness and action. In a world fragmented by fear and deception, choosing to act as if you are meant to survive becomes an act of defiance, a beacon of hope in the fog of confusion. It is the decision to reclaim agency, to rewrite your internal narrative, and to face the future not as a victim of circumstance, but as an architect of resilience. The survival of the mind is the new frontier, and in this age of uncertainty and manipulation, it may be the most critical fight of all. Survival is not merely a matter of circumstance, it is a choice. Amid the uncertainty, the chaos, and the overwhelming odds, the decision to endure, to persevere, and to thrive belongs to you. This truth shifts survival from a passive event to an active stance. It is a power waiting to be claimed, rooted in psychological preparedness, emotional regulation, and philosophical acceptance. When you act as if you were meant to survive, you are not fooling yourself. You are rewiring your brain. Neuroscience shows that our thoughts and beliefs shape neural pathways, forging resilience with every intentional act. This mindset strengthens your capacity to withstand stress, adapt to change, and navigate uncertainty. With clarity, you become not just a survivor of your circumstances, but the author of your own resilience. Emotional regulation plays a crucial role in this process. To survive tough times, you must learn to recognize and master your emotional responses. Fear, anger, and despair are natural, but they need not define your actions. By cultivating awareness and deliberate control, you transform reactive chaos into purposeful calm. Acting as if survival is your destiny grants you the space to choose your response, rather than being overwhelmed by it. Philosophically, this choice aligns with the acceptance of life's inherent unpredictability. True strength comes not from resisting hardship, but from embracing it. Understanding that struggle is the crucible in which character is forged. This acceptance doesn't breed resignation, it ignites resolve. It calls you to meet uncertainty head-on, armed with the conviction that you belong in the story of survival. Imagine your mind as a fortress, not built of stone, but of choice. Each thought, each belief, each action lays the bricks. When you decide to act as if you are meant to endure, you are constructing that fortress moment by moment. This is the essence of self-mastery, the ability to control the narrative within, regardless of external storms. Now is the moment to embody this mindset, not when crisis inevitably comes, but today. Waiting for hardship to ignite your resilience is a gamble you cannot afford. Survival is practiced in the small, seemingly ordinary decisions, choosing hope over despair, action over inertia, clarity over confusion. It is a continuous, deliberate effort to affirm your place as a survivor. This is your call to action, to step into the role you were always meant to play, to cultivate the mental strength that has sustained humanity through centuries of upheaval, to become the survivor who does not just endure, but transforms adversity into growth. The power lies within you, to shape your reality, to reclaim your agency, and to meet the unknown with courage. Survival is not a passive fate, but an active choice. Choose it now, and you become more than a witness to tough times. You become their master. Survival is far more than the simple act of staying alive. It is woven into the very fabric of what it means to be human. Across time and cultures, survival has challenged not just our bodies, but our minds and spirits. It asks us to confront impermanence, uncertainty, and change. The relentless truths that shape every life. The true measure of survival transcends physical endurance. It resides in the psychological and spiritual realms where meaning is forged amid chaos. To survive is to learn how to thrive, not despite hardship, but because of it. It is the art of embracing the unknown, welcoming struggle as a teacher rather than a curse. This transformation demands a radical shift in perspective, a new lens through which to view the human condition. Instead of fearing loss, we begin to see it as an invitation to grow. Instead of resisting uncertainty, we learn to dance with it. In this way, survival becomes a dynamic process, a continuous unfolding of resilience and wisdom. We are part of an unbroken chain of survivors, individuals who have acted as if they were meant to endure, shaping history with their strength and courage. Their stories remind us that survival is never a solitary act. It is a shared human journey. And now, faced with our own moment of uncertainty, the question remains, how will you choose to survive? Will you accept the passive role of victim, or will you step into the active role of architect, designing a life of resilience, purpose, and meaning? Perhaps, as the philosopher said, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. The challenge is to find your why, to act as if survival is not just possible, but inevitable. The story is far from over. It is being written with every choice you make, every thought you embrace, and every action you take. The question is no longer if you will survive, but how you will survive, and what you will become in the process.